no AC in my car.
For budget, and we'll turn it over, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. With this meeting, we are reaching the culmination of your fiscal year 25-26 budget process. The budget before you is balanced at $125 million, just over $125 million, a decrease from last year, and Victoria will go over the numbers in more detail with you. It does not contemplate any general fund tax increases, but does include the rate increases that the council recently voted on to balance the sewer and refuse enterprise funds. This year's budget team faced some significant challenges with regards to the budget, primarily because of the flat revenue growth we've been experiencing in sales tax revenues now probably for the last year and a half, and also additional pressures placed on us by the legislature in terms of limiting and eroding some of our tax base, especially with regards to rental taxes before that you're aware of. So what that does is that hurts us in terms of being able to do capital projects, so we face more pressure to try to find outside funding to meet some of the capital project goals you're doing. Of course, maintaining competitive wages is also something that's impacted by that. You'll see a 2% increase here, which is a little less than we've been able to do in past years. So we're seeing some pressure there, and of course, street maintenance as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Victoria. I want to thank her for leading the budget team, Jen and Dave, and the department heads for all their cooperation and helping to put this budget together. And I'd like to thank the council for the numerous meetings you've already attended for this year's budget and providing us the direction that we needed through your strategic planning process to help build this document and give us guidance on what we're going to be doing in the future. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Victoria.
Scott, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and I need to also start by thanking Jen and David, the best budget team anybody could ever ask for and the most diligent. David answered a text for us from Spain this morning, so I really appreciate their hard work and dedication, and our department heads and division managers. Like Chuck said, it was not the easiest year to put a budget together. I think I went to the team and said multiple times, give me a flat budget. I want a flat O&M budget, do your best. And they all did their best, and almost all of them came in with flat O&M budgets this year, and the ones who didn't had good reason for it. So I'm going to go through those and the other changes. You have seen much of this budget before, although we do have a number of changes to talk through, so I will do those first, and then again go through your revenue, debt, O&M, personal capital, and wrap up with future issues, as Chuck already covered for the most part. All right, so we did have some changes, some last-minute changes in state shared revenue. I'm going to go over that in a couple slides here, and you'll see where we made changes and why. This is also the time where we try and correct any mistakes that we find. One of the first changes was Jen found an old notes payable line item for $82,000 that was related to an old ambulance. We don't know where that came from, but we removed it, but we have to make up for that. So that was part of the adjustment on the state shared revenue side. Then we have carryovers like the Fire Station 2 improvements. Those are the parking lot and then the bay door. We simply weren't able to get that completed by the end of the fiscal year here, so we will carry that over to next year. When we do that, we also transfer in capital improvement fund money to make that payment, and then on the bottom of the slide, you'll see that adjustment. I will get to that when I get down the slide here. On the airport side, the AWAS, the weather system, is a carryover for next year. We increased the DESIP Airport Utilities Extension project. Our initial budget numbers, we needed some clarification. We weren't sure if that total number included design and construction, and found that it did not include the design as a separate item, so that's what the $237,000 is. And between the AWAS project and adding that design fee, it bumped up, we also bumped up construction just a little bit based on the estimate that we got back. So that's the increased carryover there of $727,100. In the CIF, we made some significant changes, and Chuck and I got a chance to discuss that with some of you over the past couple of weeks. For those of you that we didn't get to discuss those changes yet, a couple things that have been going on related to Roadrunner Park and utility costs at the golf course. So, as we've been working through the development of construction plans for Roadrunner Park, the cost to do the construction plans came back much higher than we had originally anticipated. So staff had been working really hard to find ways to do that more cost effectively. We'd been looking at designing it internally and thought that would be a good option. It turns out, due to some unexpected upcoming retirements, we are not going to be able to do that internally, so we need to keep working on finding a good way to do that with a third-party company. And because of that, we'll be bumping up the design cost by about $100,000. In the meantime, we've seen some urgent needs developing at the Sierra Vista Golf Center, primarily due to utility costs. And if you remember, we didn't have the utility history of the golf course facility when we accepted that facility. And Paradigm assumed all of the operational costs on themselves when they took over management of the the golf course. And so as the year has gone by since September, we're finding the electricity costs, particularly for the wells and the well on the front nine, skyrocketing. So to the tune of about $13,000 to $16,000 a month. And if you remember, that's a very old well that we did know would need to be replaced eventually. The cost of that well was estimated at over $700,000. And so in looking at the fact that we're going to need to take an extra year probably to design Roadrunner Park, it made more sense to switch out the construction project for Roadrunner, knowing that we're not going to get to construction this year, and instead reallocate that money towards an energy savings project at the Golf Center, where, combined with the solar rebate that we got for the solar covered parking we did with the last Schneider Electric project, that amount came in much more than we anticipated. We had estimated on the lower end of about $750,000. It came in at $1.3 million. So that was great news. And that money was going to go towards Roadrunner Park construction. So we can reallocate that money towards the energy savings project that we're currently working through with Schneider Electric to put together. The $5.8 million estimate is a very, very rough estimate. We sat down and met with them and said, look, we have 2 weeks and we need some kind of number to share with council when we talk about this project with them. And went over a couple things that we wanted to do, including the replacement of the well, a potential solar project, because the rebate that we got the money from the solar covered parking is still in existence and will be at least through the end of next year, so we could take advantage of that again, as well as optimizing and reducing some of the water use. If you recall, in addition to the additional electricity cost, we also end up paying about $40,000 a year to supplement the water that old well on the front nine cannot pull up with water from the Pueblo del Sol Water Company. We also know that water company is going to be sold in hopefully soon, and anticipate that they would raise the cost of water as well. So we have a number of anticipated costs and need to find a way to help Paradigm out with the load they have shouldered with the operational costs they have taken on. And so we're proposing, again, exchanging the Roadrunner construction just for 1 year and budgeting in fiscal year '27 for the construction of Roadrunner Park while we work to complete the construction plans this year. So that's about the first 6 bullets on the CIF changes. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
So those changes are gonna be, they didn't make it into this.
Yes, those are, so the, adding the SVGC Energy Savings Project for 5.8 million.
Yeah.
What we would do then is remove the land water conservation grant for 1.5 million. The city was putting 1.5 million against as the grant match for the LWCF grant. So that's a total of $3 million that would be removed. And then we'll take 100,000 of that $1.3 million rebate and put it towards the additional money for design, and then take the rest of that money and put it towards the energy savings project.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that that's an option for us. I feel because that's terrible about it being so costly for Paradigm, because in the assumptions that we had, you said their monthly is 13,000 for the electric.
That was in April, Laura, and so as it's gotten hotter, it's actually
Annually,
increasing.
we had less than that as an assumption when we made Interact. So I'm glad we can address that. Thank you.
What was the new well replacement cost again? Did you mention?
So, Councilmember Rodriguez, when Castle and Cook first discussed this with us, their estimate was around $700,000 to dig a new well. So we'll of course have to go through what that updated cost is now, because that number is about 2 years old.
Oh, all right. So that right now it's, if it's anywhere between 12,000 to 16,000 a month, that's 144,000 and 192,000 a year, right? Is what we're going to come up with. Ridiculous. All right, and the new well replacement will be estimated. I don't trust anything Castle and Cook says anyway, so 700K, I would probably triple that because of, seems like that's the way we're going with them, so,
We need to do our own due diligence on it.
yes, most definitely. I wouldn't trust that number.
Yeah, and Mayor McCaw, members of the council, we met with Paradigm last week to go over how things are going in the operation. And things are going, very well, and they're pretty much where they thought they would be. They have taken on some losses in terms of startup and some of the improvements that are being made. But in order for them to be successful, they've identified these energy costs, especially related to the wells, as an issue that's going to make it difficult for them to be successful going forward. And we thought that this type of project would be the best way that we could help them, and then hopefully help ourselves by reducing the energy needs out at the course going forward.
And then the final 3 bullets on this slide, I will get more into transit on the next slide. This is just what we have to do to balance, and so that's where the transfer out from the CIF to the general fund of $472,000, which is to cover the Fire Station 2 improvement carryover plus the $5,000 from the transfer out to transit, and I'll cover that on the next slide. Okay, the transit budget changed slightly. This is really just a $5,000 impact to the capital improvement fund. Staff felt the need to increase our indirect costs went up about 5%. So those indirect costs are all of the personnel and O&M costs. So it was a reasonable increase. That means we were able to pull down a little more federal funding for our match. So the $26,866 is federal money that we receive in addition. We increased the carryover to $30,000 to balance. I will explain about why we have additional fund balance in that fund here in just a second. And then to balance, we transfer in an additional capital improvement fund money in addition to our transfer in, which equates to $62,215, which is the increase to the indirect costs. So Jen mentioned this earlier in the year, but just to remind you, so the reason why we ended up with a fund balance in the LTAF or transit fund is because we were fully budgeting for all of the projects and all of the matches in that fund. We also budget things like our FTA grant projects in there, so most of those projects take multiple years to develop. And so, like, we currently have a number of fiscal year 23 FTA grants that are in the process of being completed. We will still be carrying over some of them, but we found that we had budgeted the full match each year and then rebudgeted it. So we were budgeting those matches even though we weren't spending it for the project in that year. And so we're trying to adjust the budget and be more mindful of those things going forward, where if we don't need to spend that money in the next fiscal year because we know the project will take multiple fiscal years, we are putting the project in because we're going to apply for it. The most important thing is that you know about it and that it's in the budget and it is approved. But then we know that we don't budget the match until the year that we are actually going to spend that money. Otherwise, it just gets taken up by something that doesn't need to be taken up in that year. So we're correcting that for next year, but because of that, we do have a little bit of additional fund balance in the LTAF fund, and that's also why the contribution from the general fund to LTAF is lower this year. All right, I mentioned there were some last-minute changes to state shared revenue. We got the updated numbers from the league last week, and unfortunately found that their new estimates for income and sales tax were lower than what we had originally estimated. And we typically try to be very conservative in our budgeting, so we needed to decrease those state shared revenue numbers. We left HERF alone. But then we took a look at our VLT, our vehicle licensing tax, and found that it had been tracking much closer to the league's numbers than we had been budgeting. And so we were able to increase the state shared revenue VLT numbers, which, even though we increased them, are still lower than what the league estimated. So we feel that they are reasonably conservative enough to stay where they are at the increased number. All right, your budget by major fund, and I'll let's see. The general fund ended up only 61,000 over last year. The HERF fund, that significant decrease was primarily due to 2 grants that were removed, so we're no longer budgeting for the RAISE grant after applying for that for a few years and then seeing how the winners were selected and where they were going. Figure we just have absolutely no chance, and so that was $25 million that was removed. We also removed the Buffalo Soldier Trail appropriation of $25 million. We are still applying for and trying for those grants, but we know from the experience of the first appropriation for Buffalo Soldier Trail, that, which is in the budget and working through the process, even if we get it, we would not see that money for a few years. So it doesn't make any sense to put that $25 million in when we know, even if we would somehow get it, if Congress passed a budget that had the full amount to redo Buffalo Soldier Trail in it, we would not see that money for a few years, so it doesn't make sense to keep that in the budget. So it looks like a $50 million decrease in HERF. It's really due to 2 grants. The LTAF fund, the increase on that is budgeting for a new multi-use path grant. Staff will be applying for the 7th to Coronado section. I believe that one is more expensive than typical because it includes a culvert and a small bridge. So that would have to go over a wash. And then some projects are dropping off the list there to balance that out. Airport, that's primarily the spaceport license and additional projects, including the DSIP grant application. Capital Improvement Fund, you'll see the list of projects on multiple slides over the rest of the presentation. Sewer and refuse, the decrease there is due to less capital items, and we really don't have the funds for many capital projects this year. So you'll see that on future slides as well. The all other funds, that decrease is primarily due to CCOM fiscal agency shifting to the county. We just account differently for our contribution. We'd be accounting only for personnel and not all personnel and O&M, which is why there's a change there. This is just how your budget breaks down by expenditure type. Very low portion of the pie for debt at 3%, O&M 24% of your total, personnel 35%, and capital at 38%. So overall, a very good split. All right, going back through our revenue summary, the city sales tax, even though it looks like we are budgeting more an increase, in actuality, the general fund sales tax revenue is kept flat. The capital improvement fund actually increases slightly based on our use of carryover, which is why that looks like it's an increase, but it's not an actual increase in revenue. Our franchise fees are lower than we feel they should be. We need David to check that when he gets back. The number was based on actuals, but that is a significant drop for franchise fees, which are our telecom is 5% on actual revenues, and then I can't recall off the top of my head what SSVEC and Southwest Gas are, but that is a significant drop, and it really shouldn't have. So we will have David check that when he gets back. The decrease in licenses and permits is due to building permits being down. The decrease in grants is due to the decrease in HERF grants. The local government payment decrease is due to CCOM fiscal agency switching to the county. The state shared revenue decrease is due to actuals and the slide I went over a few slides ago. We're also not sure why the Prop 207 revenue is going down. That's based on actuals. If I had to guess, which would definitely be a guess, I don't think people are doing less marijuana in town, but the number's down, so we'll check on that. That might be a lack or a misreport.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't seem correct.
Yeah. Health and accident is going up this year. I'll go over this a little more on future slides, but that's a small increase to employee premiums and also an increase in the use of carryover to offset the increase. We've had some significant claims this year, which has increased the health and accident insurance cost. Ambulance fee revenue is projected up. That reflects the significant increase in calls fire and medical service has had over the past year. The sewer and refuse revenues are increased due to the approved rate increases over the next 2 years. Parks and Rec revenue increased. Those are trending actuals, so kudos to Parks and Rec. The increase on donations is not technically donations. That's where we budget organizational grants. So the increase there is due to the scoreboards that Ms. Wilson and her department are pursuing, and that's a $200,000 increase for the scoreboards. The increase in notes payable is due to the fire truck carryover and the new fire truck in the budget. And the carryover decrease is due to completed projects. And then the notes payable, or the miscellaneous revenue, is just what it says. Whenever we get revenue that doesn't really fit in any other category, it has to go into there. So things like rebates or insurance payments from our liability insurance would go in there.
I'm sorry, Victoria. I know you already explained this, but the 82,980 that Jen found in the notes payable, it shouldn't be there. Did she find that after this was printed for us, or because there just wasn't a huge difference? Okay, can I look at the compare? Wait, what? Maybe I'm looking at the wrong number. 2. Oh, no. Okay, thank you. It's just me.
Yeah, our number was 280.
Yeah.
858.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, moving on to debt. We finance certain capital projects depending on a number of factors, what type of project it is, the lifespan of the project, and the cost. We typically match the financing term to the expected life of the equipment, and we carry 2 different types of debt, bonds and lease purchasing for short-term items like vehicles. So our proposed debt service for next year is relatively small. We have a small increase, which overall is due to, we do finance certain equipment in the sewer fund. The most significant cost there is your current sewer bond, which we are expecting to pay off in January of '27. So we have a year and a half left on that. And we'll be working over the next year on the proposed expansion for the sewer plant to take the place of that bond. The CIF debt service, it just increased a little bit. That's your 2 Schneider electric bonds that are being paid off. The increase is mainly due to fees, so just under $2,500. We did find a mistake on this slide, and this is what we needed to text David about this morning. The 2026 outstanding debt number is about half of what it should be. Our debt for fiscal year 2026 should be about $28.5 million. So we'll get with David and correct that for next week before you vote on the final budget as well. Your operations and maintenance,
Victoria,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
yes.
What was the amount again it should be?
26.
about $28.5 million. Okay, operations and maintenance across all funds. The increase on mayor and council was just an association membership that went up. The city manager department actually encompasses the city manager's office, economic development, communications, and finance. Similarly, admin services includes IT, city clerk's office, HR, and procurement. That significant increase is primarily due to IT projects, which I'll go over. The court legal increase, our municipal court costs did go up for this year, or for next year. This current fiscal year, we paid just over $280,000. In fiscal year '26, we will pay $345,102. The increase is primarily due to increased staff costs, and then our percentage, the way the formula works is we take all of the operational costs of running the court, and then we break down the cases that are assigned to the court and look at the percentage that are cases brought to the court by Sierra Vista and assess that percentage against the total cost. And so the number of cases filed in court went up a little bit last year, plus the costs increased, which led to the increase. And I looked it all over carefully. We also increased a little outside legal, so we also have a PSPRS board attorney. We'll be using her services a little more since our HR staff and myself are very new with our PSPRS board, so we've asked her to do some training for next year and have increased that cost. We also use various employment attorneys, and we shifted our budget for our water attorney under court legal, since that's where it really should be, not under city manager's office. General government increased. That's primarily due to our insurance costs for next year increased $600,000. We got our stop loss premiums went up significantly. We did have a handful of unfortunately large claims this year hit our insurance, which happens. And so we were able to mitigate that a number of ways with the small increase, and staff worked very hard to ensure that the increase on premiums was not more than the lowest paid employee they would still see at least half of their raise for the year. We also took some money out of the insurance fund balance to make up for that as well. We'll see what happens next year. These things do tend to fluctuate. And we had a long discussion with our insurance company on things that we could do to mitigate the costs as well, including additional training for staff. And so HR and the clerk's office are working very closely on rolling out that training for staff to mitigate some of that increase as well. The police department decrease is not an actual operations and maintenance decrease. That was a decrease in special revenue, which is primarily RICO funds, and then grants. So again, we didn't actually decrease their operating funds. The decrease in the MPO appears to be a decrease in professional services from last year. And then the increase in community development, again, this is all funds. This is not their operational funds. So we have an increase for CDBG grants and project carryovers, not their budget specifically.
Quick question on the insurance. Did the city's insurance go from a PPO to EPO this year?
I'm sorry, what was
Did
that?
it go from a PPO to an EPO form of insurance?
No. We've always had a high deductible healthcare plan and a PPO.
Okay, so we're not going to an EPO?
I don't. Oh, we are? Come on up, Kings.
Mayor and City Council and Councilmember Rodriguez, yes, starting with the new fiscal year, all employees who are currently on the PPO will be changed to the EPO. We discussed that in all of the open enrollment sessions. It's an automatic change, so no one will no longer be on the PPO, and the high deductible health plan still exists, and it's still the same.
Okay. When you mentioned the, no, I'm not, I mean, either one of you, just when you mentioned the premiums, right? How we're trying to keep it lowest possible level. From what little bit I know about insurance, PPO versus EPO, when it comes to like rural Arizona, rural cities, it seems like a PPO is a better option when it comes to outside networks, because that's all we have is outside network. We don't have a very good network here in Sierra Vista, which is normally the EPO route, I would think. But when it comes to, the price, I guess, trying to keep the prices down, is that still going to be along those same lines of what we just said right now, was keeping the premiums down for all employees?
Yes, actually, the city is part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield network, so we believe the new EPO plan is going to be expanding the capabilities of our employees to use Blue Cross Blue Shield. Using the EPO also expands their ability to use them out of state. So if someone wanted to go to California for a special treatment, the EPO will allow them to do that based on the same plans, and it doesn't have to go out of network. So in-state and out-of-state, the EPO will pay for them as if they're all in network, as long as they're covered under Blue Shield Blue Cross.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on that, sorry. I promise.
Yes, ma'am.
So the PPO did not cover that? Only the EPO will cover that? Is that
Last
correct?
year's model, if you went out of state, it wouldn't be covered under our insurance. And the employee would pay out of pocket for that or from their dedicated medical plan that they offset their payment in plan. But no, out of states, we're not covered.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mayor McCaw, members of the council, this is something I watch personally very closely, and we have a consulting team from Gallagher that we work with. We had 4 or 5 catastrophic events with employees last year, and when they ran the numbers, they came back and said that there would need to be a significant increase in employee premiums going forward into this year. And as you know, we've actually been able to keep premiums flat for a number of years. So because of these catastrophic events, they were looking at these large increases to the point where the increases would actually consume the amount of the raise that a lot of the employees would get, which I didn't think was appropriate. So I had David look at the numbers, and we came up with basically a split of about a third of the increase being taken up by an increase in budget from the city, a third coming from the reserve we have. We still have significant reserves, so we're in pretty good shape there. And then only a third of the increase was being borne by the employees then. So we were able to reduce that amount. So hopefully the employees would then see an increase in their paychecks as a result. So we're taking a little bit of risk in terms of using some reserve. And again, the insurance is there to cover catastrophic events in particular, so that's important to be able to do. But hopefully we won't experience that many next year, and the risks we're taking, I think, will be mitigated as a result. So a lot of work went into that, and then we're constantly looking at tweaking and changing the plan and trying to get the best bang for our buck in terms of the services we provide. But we generally do not ever really look at reducing the level of services to the employees.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and Parks, Rec, and Library also was not a O&M decrease. That was difference in project costs for this year. So there's still plenty of Parks and Rec projects, which you will see on next slides. All right, the significant O&M changes in fiscal year 26 budget compared to fiscal year 25. I mentioned in the city manager budget, we shifted our water attorney expenses over to the legal budget. In IT, we had some significant changes. Our body camera cloud storage costs went up. I believe this was the year to renew the contract. Axon is very good. They are also expensive. The radios, we switched to a different company from Canyon State for PD and fire radios, so that was a difference in cost. We saved a little bit. Specialized supplies were the most significant increase on the IT side. Most of that is the $195,000. We need to replace all of the in-vehicle cameras for the police department, and they will also go onto Axon. So end of life and switching to Axon. In addition to that, the radios for Parks, Rec, and Libraries is for better event communication, and then the PD in-car laptops and MDTs for fire apparatus. We also have our regular replacement scheduled, 10 laptops for PD and 7 for fire apparatus.
I know Axon's good, and they kind of got us by the shorts here, though, but because they're so good and obviously need them. But the cloud storage, is that to align with a timeline to stay CALEA certified? Is that why? Is that important here, or?
Mayor McCaw, Councilmember Rodriguez. Actually, that increase was also because we need more licenses.
Okay.
What's the demand that we're meeting now is now we have all this body cam. We got to redact it for all these public records requests, and there are a lot. So it's expanding the licenses to records clerks and everybody in the agency that's going to need it on the back end of it. And then also, as we're getting fully staffed, we needed to increase the number of cameras and licenses we had. So that was actually the main reason behind
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
But to answer your question about CALEA, it's not a requirement of CALEA to have that. But I will tell you the body cams make our accreditation process very manageable because a lot of the body cam footage become proofs that we're following policies that we can then share with CALEA.
I know I'll throw pages on, but there's so many pages here.
Yeah.
But one of them was the some cameras in the vehicles. Now I know some of the back seats were having issues with the rear-facing camera. You could not record. I sat in a few cop cars myself, and I saw that problem. Is this going to fix that issue that you've been having?
It sure is, and also make it a lot user-friendly for the officers because it's a different system, and so when we have the in-car camera, it's not syncing with your body camera, and then we have to get ready for trial, court, Again, records request, we have a different system that we're trying to pull that out of. Redact makes it a lot more seamless if we use Axon for all of it. Easier for the officers to tag and basically categorize their videos all in just one swipe on their phone, actually. So it gives them more time out in the field, not having to do it administratively back at the station. And then the server capacity and storage on the old system, we're pretty much end of life on
Okay,
that.
thank you, appreciate the clarification.
In finance, some administrative updates between finance and city clerk. The impact fee study is finished, so we don't have to do one this year, but that is a decrease. Increase in travel and training for finance, that's due to having 2 new grant administrators who need to go through particularly federal grant administration training. And then on the city clerk side, election services is an every other year cost, so we had an election last year, we'll not have one next year, then it'll come back the following year. In communications, we decreased advertising $10,000 to reflect actuals from the current fiscal year. We also increased printing and binding, though we have to go back out for bids for the Vistas and expect an increased cost on that. On the police side, we increased professional services and ops for after-hours legal services. The police department has a growing need to be able to talk to an attorney in the middle of the night, and that's really not something that our city attorney, he's not a criminal attorney, and so they need to often talk to criminal attorneys at 2 a.m. So this is a service that can be provided by an after-hours service. And then our contribution to CCOM is the rest of that increase. On the ACO side, professional services decreased due to using inmate labor less, but we did also increase a part-time to full-time position to make up for the decrease in those hours.
So it's just with that, look at page 2 and it says we have this decrease, but then on page 23 it says that the city relies heavily on volunteers and Department of Correction personnel to reduce expenditures. It's like we're saying 2 different things at the same time, but are we doing that because, it's not saying that we don't need the labor, we're just using it less at the ACO because they have other volunteers doing it? Is that
A good question, Mayor and Councilmember Rodriguez. It's not available to us anymore, the labor. It's been cut back because of some issues, and the required supervision demands are higher, so we're probably not going to be using DOC inmate labor anymore. And so that's really the reason behind it. It was a good thing while we had it. Right now, we're only using 2. The maximum we can have are 2 at a time. Doesn't get much done now, and we actually want to move away from it altogether.
All right.
And we'll update the budget book to cross out inmate. Just to rely heavily on volunteers.
I don't want us to be saying 2 different. It just seems like we're saying we do this, but we're not doing this.
No, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
In fire, we did some shifting for just a better place to budget certain funds out of. So building maintenance, 20,000 came out of building maintenance, but moved over to supplies. We had an increase in vehicle and equipment maintenance. That was due to our defibrillators had a annual maintenance contract that was covered by a grant for several years. It's not covered by a grant any longer, so we are taking over that cost. And then specialized supplies, we removed 25,600 and moved it there from building maintenance. So that was took them out of building maintenance, moved it to specialized supplies, primarily cleaning supplies for each station. Engineering, we added $50,000 for on-call site plan reviews. With the decrease in engineering staff and our struggles to hire additional engineering staff, we were starting to fall behind in our site plan reviews. And so we did we went through a procurement to hire 2 firms for on-call services. So now when we get those in, those do not have to go to our internal engineering staff for review. It can go to the on-call and take that off of their plate. Fleet, the cost of parts continues to go up, so we budgeted $95,000 additional for the increase in vehicle or increased cost of parts. And then community development, you'll see the balance of the contribution to Good Neighbor Alliance. Some of that amount they requested went this current fiscal year, and then $54,949 for next fiscal year. Some adjustments in public works and facilities. We did some electrical assessments in the past year that are completed, and so that appears to be a decrease. It was just finished. In electric, a good story. We're seeing the benefits from the addition of our solar arrays, and so we were able to decrease our electricity budget by $100,000. And then in building maintenance, Coven Library, that's a project that was finished this year, and so it appears as a decrease for next year. In sports, we have increased instructor costs, which is offset by revenue, so that's a good thing. Those are additional classes and programs we'll be offering, as well as budgeting for some dugout covers. In child and family services, same thing, increasing programming. Those contracts for the programming will be offset by revenue as well. And then library, also a good thing. It was our contract with our security company was up. We went out for a new one and selected a new company that cost just over $10,000 less than the previous company, so we're saving a little bit of money there.
It's good to see this, the solar offset mentioned a few times in this book. Hopefully looking forward to, I think, was it a year? It's been our yearly update that'll show like what the actual offset has been so far since these were implemented. I know it's throughout this book, but hopefully soon I'm sure we'll see something that shows like everything that we put, for the Snyder project.
I'm making a note, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Because we get asked that, I know I get asked that, like, how much money are we saving? Obviously it's happening, but it's good to see it so we can show our people of Sierra Vista how much money we're actually saving from this project.
We will look at the report and pull out it's a very long, detailed report, so I'll ask Ms. Wilson to take a look at that and boil down our takeaways like we did for the first project.
Thank you.
And this is how your operations and maintenance pie splits out. Public Works, the largest share at 45%. General government at 20%, admin services at 9%, and all of your other departments thereafter for an O&M total of just over $31.3 million. Moving on to personnel for next year, the new personnel requests, we consider them new personnel because they are new positions, but we will not actually be hiring in additional personnel. These will be promotional opportunities with no backfill. And so we are looking at adding a Deputy Chief Information Officer, a Supervisory Community Service Officer, an assistant to the city manager, a refuse technician, and a recreation program supervisor. And the amounts there are an estimate of what the salary increase would be for those positions. In reclassifications, these are one of two things. So every year we do a market comparison for 1/3 of our city positions, and that's when our HR staff go out and ask for the salaries and ranges from comparable positions. They compare the job descriptions, ensure that they are doing similar tasks, and then do a geographical adjustment to Sierra Vista, which was determined by the consultant who did our class and comp study back in 2014. So then the positions come back and we see how they compare in the marketplace. It could also be a department requesting that HR look at a specific position to see if the person is working outside of their classification, which then sometimes merits a salary adjustment. So our payroll coordinator will be reclassifying to an HR analyst, and our procurement, a buyer will go to a procurement analyst. Police, the part-time ACO assistant to a full-time, that's not technically a reclassification, but it didn't really fit into a new position or a reclass, so it went here on the list. But we're taking an existing part-time ACO assistant to move to full-time because of that reduction in inmate hours. Our police records clerks 1 and 2 came back significantly below market, and so that amount is actually the total increase, not the individual increase for 5 records clerk 1s and 2 records clerk 2s. The community service officers were also low, as was the evidence custodian, and so they would see adjustments as well. On fire, we looked at the paramedic pay, their hourly rate, and compared that as well. They will see an increase of $56,000 over 33 employees. So that's the total amount for all employees. And the fire inspector position was a little low. In transit, they requested a reclassification with additional duties added of a CSR to a department specialist. In community development, the code enforcement officers came back also significantly below the market. The deputy city clerk was below the market, as were the IT systems administrators 1 and 2, which will all see increases. Your annual retirement contributions for PSPRS and ASRS. PSPRS will have an $87,000 increase from this year for a total contribution of just under $7.6 million. And just as a reminder that we do budget our full amount for our staff, even if we have retirements or they enter the drop, which leads to an additional contribution for the city for the year. We also do things like trying to pay that full amount up front to PSPRS, which then earns additional interest for the year, which is then also an additional payment. And even though it's a lot of money, we are making headway in our PSPRS liability burden. ASRS doesn't suffer from the same issues, so ASRS actually decreased their contribution slightly for next year due to good investment performance. So staff who are in ASRS will see a very small decrease on their contribution rate. And that is all controlled by PSPRS and ASRS respectively. The city has no control over those rates. And this is just how your personnel costs break down by fund. This does reflect a 2% annual step increase for all personnel for next year, which is a total amount of just over $462,000 for full-time. We do also budget a 2% increase for all part-time staff. And the decrease on CCOM, again, is due to shifting fiscal agency, not because they're actually seeing a decrease in their salaries. Okay, going back through a few of the capital projects, I don't believe any of these have changed from the last presentations that you've seen. In the police department, we did add some things like the evidence parking lot expansion. We've been pushing that off for a couple of years, and it very much needs to be done. So that will be paving, fencing, I think lighting and cammering the new, or the evidence lot. The Animal Control Center is in need of security cameras, so we will add some out there. Fingerprint reader is end of life, very much need a new one. Our annual budget for police vehicles will replace 5 in the next year. The puppy room, you did see we sent out some additional information. Staff went back and calculated all of the costs for design and construction over the past couple of fiscal years. And so with the $2.7 million that we spent in design and construction, the $200,000 next year will bring you to about $2.9 million spent on the expansion of the Animal Control Center in this phase. The local border support project is for the license plate readers, Chief, the grant?
Yes, it sure is.
Thanks. And then the rest are several grants that the police department will be applying for. The fire department was in need of a replacement generator and a UPS power backup. You'll see the 2 fire trucks. The one fire truck, the carryover, we hope to receive next spring. The other one we'll order and hope to see in about 18 months after that. The 1 ambulance carryover we will definitely see this fiscal year, so that will complete the 3 ambulances that we'd been waiting on for some time, that we got 2 last year, and we'll get this one next year. Fire Station 4 is the next station up for security cameras, so after doing that one, I think we only have 1 station left after that, so Fire Station 3 will be the last station to get security cameras the following year. The Fire Station 2 improvements, that's the carryover project for the parking lot expansion and the bay door, and then budgeting for the design of Station 4 expansion, which is a strategic plan item. The only capital project in IT is replacing a very necessary server at City Hall. That Climatech server controls our environmental controls. Plenty of projects in Parks, Rec, and Library, also reflecting your strategic plan goals and Parks Master Plan implementation. So, number of small projects. Park projects will include tot turf repair at Sierra Mataro Park, the splash pad at Len Roberts, new playground and landscaping at Nancy Hakes Park, the conversion of the basketball court at the Oscar Room Community Center to pickleball courts, the survey and design of Henry Jones Legacy Park. That's a carryover, and then recall the CDBG funds will be allocated to construction of Phase 1 at Henry Jones Park 2. The Roadrunner Park design does reflect the additional $100,000 we moved over to add to that. The Sierra Vista Golf Course Energy Savings Project is listed at $5.8 million. The golf course clubhouse renovation placeholder for $1 million. We are hoping to have more details on that project to share soon. And then a number of grant projects. One to note, the Veterans Monument at Veterans Park, that is a pass-through for an appropriations requests for the Veterans Memorial Group. So that is not a city project, it would be a pass-through.
And I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And we had the FTA grant for FAB at 300 some thousand, I can't remember.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I don't remember the exact cost either, but we do have an FTA grant that will do part of the curb gutter sidewalk and water management at Henry Jones Park.
Would that be on here somewhere?
I didn't see it.
I believe that would be an LTAF. Yeah, if it's an FTA grant, that would be in the LTAF fund.
Oh, it's not going to be on the, because I saw Henry Jones, I thought, oh, it'd be next to it. Okay.
That's the design funds, so to do the construction plans.
Okay, thank you.
Not many projects in sewer or refuse, a carryover on the Riverstone grant in sewer, and then in refuse, roll-off containers and the refuse truck packer rebuild. In the HERF fund, I don't believe we changed anything million budgeted for your garden. Construction project is underway, so about half of that carries over to next year, and we still anticipate completion in December of this year. Martin Luther King Parkway reconstruction looks as if it's very near to being finished, so the estimate got moved up to June 30th, but we decided to carry it over anyway because that didn't leave a lot of room for just in case something happens. So chances are good that we'll finish here by the end of this year. Buffalo Soldier Trail reconstruction phase 1, that is the appropriation project that we are currently working through with ADOT. You should see the IGA with ADOT for that project here at an upcoming council meeting soon. Theater Drive project, that is the state-funded appropriation. Staff are working on that design. Julio Cesar phase 1, that project we were able to fit in. We had a number of HERF projects come in under budget this year, and so we were able to budget the additional project for next year out of some of those savings from this year. And then a street sweeper, ours is more than 20 years old.
The real quick question: the street phase 1, so that was appropriated, or whatever, what year that was. So that's the one we're actually
24.
okay, and that's the one we're actually getting.
Yes.
And that's for phase 1, which is closer to Fort Huachuca Gate, right?
It's 7th Street, about 3,000 feet north.
Okay. 3,000 feet, right? For $4 million.
Yes.
That's the math. All right, so that's what, somebody says how much roads cost. 3,000 feet of road costs $4 million. Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
And staff did apply again since the $7 million appropriation that was tentatively in the fiscal year 25 federal budget did not make it to the end. Staff did apply again for appropriation to complete Buffalo Soldier Trail, so we will hope Congress passes a budget next year.
And actually, Congressman Siscomani's office asked us for the full boat, so we'll see how successful they are. That would be nice. Not counting on it, but
It's gonna be a paper boat, I think. I don't know. Hope.
All right, in the airport fund, we of course have the spaceport license budgeted. We are receiving tentative news from the state that we may have funds in the state budget to put towards that. The amounts have differed over, the House just passed a budget, the Senate and the governor are currently negotiating, so it could be anywhere from half to the full amount or not. So the news is good right now, so hopefully that stays in the budget. Any amount would be great. There's several grant projects in here, the pavement rehabilitation of the main apron area, reconstructing a portion of the apron near the self-serve fuel area, reconstructing the taxi lane, another taxi lane rehabilitation project. The airport master plan should wrap up in the next several months. The DSIP grant, the airport utility installation and design, that's for the sewer line at the airport. So staff are currently working on the DSIP grant application for that project. We're hoping third time's the charm on that one, so fingers and toes crossed. And then several other things, a well pump, 2 new generators, and the carryover of the AWAS system.
And if we get the money appropriate from the state for the license, we can use that money to pay for one of the other sewer, maybe?
well, Mayor McCaw, Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey, the plan would be to hold that money back and put it towards the sewer project, and then hopefully find other funds to augment that. So.
Okay, great.
Okay, LTF, many of these projects are FTA funded. Mr. Rodriguez, the $300,000, I believe, is in that connectivity and safety projects. We did lump a number of those together for a total of $2.2 million. The rest of the projects, you'll see the BST pathway connectivity and the South Route 92 pathway connectivity programs. One of those was just awarded. The other one is about to go out to bid, I believe. So those will both be constructed in the next year, which is exciting. And then the rest, vehicle refurbishments, and then our annual transit scheduling software and hardware. I believe that goes in every year. And then our next big grant request is for the multi-use path between 7th and Coronado along 90. All right, getting close to the end of our presentation here. Chuck mentioned many of these at the beginning of our time here today. Our future issues, street maintenance, of course, remains top of the list for a good reason, as I'm sure you are well aware. Maintaining the class and comp plan, we are doing well. There are many cities out there that are doing class and comp studies this year. Ours is now over 10 years old, and so they're meant to last for about 10 years, and so it is time to think about looking at updating our class comp study. Public safety, retirements, PSPRS, again, we're making progress. It remains a significant cost. We do have our upcoming environmental operations park expansion to work through. Be working through that over the next year, interviewing energy savings companies to see where we can do that project better and implement it in a way that's most cost effective to our ratepayers. We always need to keep an eye on what the state does and what their actions might bring. The budget's not finished yet, so that shouldn't impact us negatively here at the end, but there are still bills alive. I don't believe there's anything that's still alive that would impact us, but there have been last-minute things in past years, so we keep a close eye on that. And then, of course, in general, just keeping an eye on the economy and our generally flat revenue and how that will trend over the next year. So a number of things that we continually keep an eye on and we'll keep you informed of. All right, so next week is your tentative budget adoption. The budget you adopt on Thursday, the final budget could be, things could still change, but you'll be adopting a cap for that budget, and the final budget cannot be more than that number, but could potentially be less, which doesn't typically happen, but is legally possible. July 24th will be your property hearing on your property tax levy and your final budget adoption. And then the final step in your budget process is August 14th with your tax levy adoption. That's the conclusion of your presentation, and myself and the staff are happy to answer any further questions.
Questions? Yes, sir.
I had an airport question. I know we have the airport, what's the plan called? Master plan in the works. So I know that's coming forth, but just just look in the budget here when it comes to like rent, aircraft fuel, prices. How often do we compare those to other cities, and how often do we do that to see what we charge for fuel, hangar lease, things like that? So other people that have municipal airports, how often is that
Laura to
done?
take that one.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, hangar rent, it's been a couple years now, but just some informal looking I've done, I'd say we're roughly in line with what other cities charge for hangars of our type. It's not to say you can't find a cheaper hangar somewhere else, but it might not have the amenities that our airport offers. In terms of fuel, that's something we take a look at on a regular basis, and we adjust prices as needed based on what's happening with market costs. Sometimes we don't have to do adjustments for a while because prices are holding pretty steady. Other times there's a lot of volatility, and our primary concern was we don't want to end up getting behind in our pricing where we're dispensing fuel for a price we can't recoup.
Cool. Cool. Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate it very much. Anything else, sir?
Is it?
Yeah, I think I have.
Overall
Yeah, go ahead.
comments on the actual budget. on the actual budget booklet. I remember when I first came on council, and the budget book, it's like this huge, massive booklet. It's under 300, under 300 pages, but I remember going through it and how much I appreciated how it was broken down, by the sections are broken down, and how every year it's there's been some slight adjustments in how it's gotten. It's more user-friendly to go through, and how I really appreciate how throughout the year it's broken down and presented in the work sessions and given to us in chunks, and how we're able to kind of see go through the process together as a group, and that makes it easier when we actually go through the budget book. And I think that any member of the public or anybody can take this book and they can go through it, and they can go through it in pieces. I mean, you got to go through it in pieces, but they can take it and they can really understand how the city works, how the department works. Each department works because it goes through and it gives a description of every department, and it gives major accomplishments. It gives various stats and performance measures and things like that. And so I think it's a great way, even if somebody can just go through the budget summary and kind of go through, as they can see what the city has done, what it's doing, and what it's looking to do. And so I don't really have a whole lot of other cities to compare their budgets and stuff to, but I feel like it is a really great representation of where we've been, where we're at, and where we're looking to go. And so I just want to let everybody know how much I appreciate all the hard work that goes into it throughout the years. And I feel like we're very fortunate as a city to have the budget book that we do, because budgets are not super exciting. It's not like, a page turner fantasy book that you're gonna go through over the weekend and not want to put down. But I feel like it's very user friendly to go through, and I appreciate the time that everybody goes through to make sure that we understand it, from having the work sessions to having the one-on-one meetings to having the group meetings, and as much time as we need to go through it so we understand and we're able to make those decisions that we need to do. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate that.
Ms. Delahaye works very hard on that book.
I would echo all that. I'm like, I don't know if I was just getting better at reading it, or if you guys were getting better at presenting it and putting it together. And I think it's a little bit of both. But Jen has worked hard. It's more seamless, if that makes sense. You aren't. In the first year, I remember different terms were being used for the same thing and confusing me. We were like, well, this actually means this over here. But I think there's obviously been an effort to make things, and you have the same department name this year throughout the book, which is nice. And it's clearly been a big overhaul on this budget book. And if somebody doesn't like Angelica said, if someone doesn't want to read this whole thing, they can still pull up the PDF online on our website and just type in, maybe they're interested on transit, how much are we spending on transit? What's that cost? They can just type that in to their, search the document and get right to it. And I really love the new things. Whoever came up with the images, the graphics this year, going online and saying how much we're spending and on what we're spending.
That was Elizabeth Rozek.
Of course it was. Good job. I love that. And I think a lot of people like that. And so it's just more favors transparency in the budget process, which makes our job easier up here, which I love. And I just wanted to thank Jen, Victoria, all the department heads for, I know you guys had to go back and forth on this a lot, and I really appreciate all the hard work. Thank you.
Just a few more comments I forgot. Just to echo a few things, but I think when people can look it up, property tax, sales tax, it's very easily depicted in this booklet with charts. Because a lot of times we'll hear oh, you guys keep raising our taxes. It clearly states right here the last time that happened, and it was a Citizens Advisory Commission that helped that was part of that, the citizens. Also, the 15 principles include the voters approve general plan. Well, if they don't want to approve the general plan, then that's back on the voters to say, I need you to take a second look at this next time and see how important that is to this overall process and how much we look at that. And what we're forced to do if that doesn't get approved, then we're forced to go to the older one. If you want progress, then you got to read the plan and see what it actually entails. So that's kind of my message to the voters for that part, because it's definitely a big part of this. And the history, where, you know, I love the history of all the funds, some good, some bad, like LTAF, the state really hooked us up there and took away the lottery money and never gave it back. People are still playing the lottery every day. That money never came back to the cities, though. So that's unfortunate, but I'm glad stuff like that is in there. It's important for people to know. And also the HERF formula, because we get that all the time. Well, that's what our gas tax pays for. Well, we just give you a formula here that $4 million is going to get 7,000 feet of road. Look at our HERF money; it doesn't go very far. So it's not the answer when people say, "Well, why don't we use HERF tax money for that?" That's what our taxes go for. Well, your taxes go for a lot of things, and it's all in this book. So I recommend people to look at least the first portion of this if you don't want to get into a bunch. But good work on putting all the information out there, and thank you very much.
Ditto all that the council Dias said. From the first time that I received the budget book a couple years ago, very intimidated, very, it was, especially when you said, just read this over Memorial Day weekend. I was like, well, 300 pages in 3 days. Very intimidated, but thank you so much. I love the pie charts. I'm an Army guy, and I just like seeing chart that got it. It can figure it out from there. But budget book is very sound, easy to read, especially the tabs. Love them. You know, old Army guys, go right to it. Don't have no questions. Easy read, easy to understand.
The budget's put together with your guidance, so thank you for your involvement and guidance over the process.
Yeah, and Mayor McCaw, you guys don't know, but you're actually the guinea pigs. So, so if you know the questions that you ask, or the mistakes you find, or things you want to have clarified, and all that, really help to make the book better from year to year. And then obviously the city participates in what used to be called the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, which we win year after year. And Jen is responsible then for taking your comments and also the continuous improvement in that program to make this book better every year. So you know, it all kind of works, and every year we see the book get better and better. So, and that's a credit to Jen. So,
Excellent, Jen.
Yeah. Her presentations were really great this year. She's been getting better every year. I can't see her, that's why I'm saying she.
She prefers it that way.
She is back there. She prefers
it that way. She likes to be.
Great job, Jen. But yeah, I think that's part of the reason it was easier, is because all the front loading of information as we went along was really helpful.
I like the kids on the cover too.
Yeah,
A lot of kids on the front cover like that. Our youth doing things in our community was really good. Thank you for doing that. Shout out to our youth that all ended up on the cover of this book.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Anything else from you guys? I think that was it, sir. Anything else, ma'am?
Nope. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. So tomorrow is
doesn't look like you'll need to have a meeting tomorrow, Mr.
excellent.
Mayor.
God bless America.
Unless you want to come for one.
No.
An extra meeting.
I think we're good. Anything else from the Dias?
No.
Anything else?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we are dismissed.
All right, thank you.